Hi, everyone. Welcome to the South Carolina Foreign Language Teachers Association Virtual Conference 2021. I wish I were there with you. Well, I wish I were there in person. I wish we were all there in person so we could exchange ideas more freely, but we have to make do. My name is Linda Villadoniga, and I'm hoping I can change this. There we go. I am from St. Augustine, Florida. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born into a Spanish-speaking home. Both my parents were born in Spain, and so Spanish is my first language. And I actually understood English, but didn't speak it until I started school. Didn't have the need because all our friends were Spanish-speaking, and so I didn't have to speak English. And I didn't, plain and simple. I lived in New Jersey about 11 years, and then we moved to California. And I lived there for, I don't know, 25, 26 years, something like that. And I met my husband in Spain when I was visiting family, so he's also a Spaniard. We have 2 children. My son Richard, our son Richard, is a Spanish teacher here in St. Augustine, and he is married with 2 beautiful daughters, Maria Isabel, who is 7, and Sofia, who is 2. Maria Isabel attends Florida Virtual School because of COVID. My daughter is also married, and she and her husband have a son, Benjamin, who is 8. He is also a home learner this year because of COVID. He is in 3rd grade and attends school virtually with a teacher, and the teacher does hybrid, students face-to-face and students at home. So it's a real challenge, and I want to take this moment to give you all a shout out for the tremendous job you're doing this year under some really hard conditions, and I appreciate you and I admire you tremendously. We moved to Florida in 1988, and I began teaching at the community college level. And then after a few years, I got on to the school district, where I worked for another 16 or 17 years before retiring. In between, I also squeezed in some college classes at Flagler College. And so I've run the gamut. In California, I started teaching at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. And then I took a hiatus from teaching while I was having my 2 children. And when they started school, then I went back to work and I taught at the school they attended at the Carmel Mission, and I taught 2nd grade. So I taught everything in 2nd grade, not Spanish, just everything. I enjoyed that a lot, and which got me back into volunteering at the elementary school level when I retired. But I have to say that my true love is high school and college level courses for different reasons. But I enjoy teaching. Like I said, I retired 8 years ago. I am very active in many foreign language associations across the country and even overseas. I'm past president of the Florida Foreign Language Association, and I am also past president and past secretary of the Florida chapter of AATSP. I am presently serving as their conference chair. Its conference chair as the poster contest coordinator for the state of Florida and as the editor of our weekly bulletin, La Voz, which some of you may already receive. If you don't, send me an email and tell me you want to be added to the list. I provide resources, articles of interest, upcoming events, professional development opportunities, and just a myriad of things in the weekly bulletin. So I hope that you will want to be a part of that. Okay, we're going to talk about using choice boards as formative and summative assessments. And we all know what choice boards are. We've all heard of them. This is where you can get your handouts, but you don't need them. But I would take a picture of this slide because you won't be able to get back to it if you don't. So go ahead and do that. And then I'll see you at the next slide. Okay, so we're going to talk about what choice boards are. And I prefer to do the positive and not the negative. So a choice board is a graphic organizer, and it allows students to choose different ways to learn about a particular concept or goal, or standard. It's set up in a grid, usually with 9 squares, so 9 different activities, all related to a single concept or standard, except for the ones that I did as formative and summative assessments, because you'll see the difference. You can include more or fewer activities. 9 seems to be the norm, but you can have 6, you can have 12, whatever is good for you. And sometimes it varies because of the topic. So, bear that all in mind. These ideas, I'm giving credit to Cassidy Reinken, but these are things that we all know. It's common knowledge, but she may have been among the first to say it. So anyway. They are also a different way for students to work, rather than just giving them a page in a workbook to do or an activity in their textbook. This gives them a choice of how they want to learn that particular concept. It makes learning easier for struggling students, and it's challenging for higher achievers, in that you should have a variety of activities that fit the high, the medium, and the low students in your class. And in a way, it gets them up. They should be challenging at every level, but they shouldn't be all challenging because you're setting kids up for failure. Nor should they be too easy, because it doesn't challenge the higher achievers. So they are active, interesting, and ongoing assignments. By ongoing, I mean you give them a limited time to work on them. They have the same learning goals throughout the whole choice board, except for the formative and summative assessment ones, and you'll see why. It's an effective way to assess progress at the end of a lesson or unit. That's where you could use a formative choice board. And they're easy to tier in difficulty: high, medium, low. And you can focus on the objective or the concept or the standard. How to use it? You need to remember that you need to remember to tell the students that they are required to complete a specific number of items from the choice board. If you have 9, I would say anywhere between 3 and 4 activities for that choice board. You might want to go less to start and add. I would definitely, you don't want them to do all 9, but maybe 3 or 4 activities over a specific time at the length of the lesson, and then they go turning things in as they finish them. If they're, the kind of kid who wants to get everything done at once, then they will do the 4 or 3 activities at once. That's not always a good idea, because they're not really reviewing anything and learning. They're just doing it, to get it out of the way. But by the same token, you also don't want things turned in all at the last minute, because if you have 30 kids in the class and you have 3 assignments coming in from each one, well, that's 90 assignments you're going to grade at the last minute. Avoid that at all costs for your sanity. And I've heard teachers do this, where they've told students to do a specific configuration, like maybe they tell them to do an X, or they tell them to do the 4 corners, like in a bingo card. Personally, I think that takes choice out of it, because you've decided what goes in the 4 corners. I can see the X, sort of, but not really, because that leaves out all the middle. If I were to use it like this, it was the specific configuration, I would say that they would have to do a line, straight line, either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. And that way you hit a little bit more. And they might, find that one is harder than the other. Anyway, that's just my opinion. If you have a better way, please let me know so that I can share that with others. The benefits of using choice boards. It provides the students with the power of choosing how to learn or demonstrate what they've learned. So they have that freedom of choice, that ownership that takes over at some point in every student, hopefully. It encourages them to be responsible and accountable. Responsible because they've chosen, and that's also independent, and accountable because they know it's a grade. And if it's not done, well, then that grade is a goose egg, but that's, I don't know. Every school is different on, or every district is different on how they take care of work that isn't turned in. But, you know, I always counted these as homework grades because that's what weighed the less in my configuration of grades. Was homework was 5%, so it didn't make or break a kid. However, there's always a however, right? The students who did their homework did better on quizzes and tests, or assessments as they're now called. The students who didn't do homework struggled on the assessments. So at some point it catches up with them, and at some point they realize that I better do some homework. But there's always that kid who doesn't give a crap, you know, just whatever. It allows them to work at their own pace to a point, because you've got to set a deadline. And personally, I would tell them, I want one done by this day, one done by this day, one done by this day, so that, again, you don't get 90 at once. And if you've got 5 or 6 classes, well, my gosh, multiply that. And so you don't want that. The purpose of a choice board is that it's always been, this is the reason for choice boards. 2 things: give them choice, so it empowers the student, and it's designed to provide differentiated learning, because you have different levels of complexity built into your choice board, or you should have. That's ideal. And it covers a specific content, so it's an easy way for you, an easy and quick way, usually, to see if they've accomplished the goal that you had in mind. If it's vocabulary, did they learn the vocabulary? Well, if they've done 3 activities that involve the vocabulary of the lesson, then they probably have. It engages students because they have the freedom to choose what activities they want to do. A word of caution: there's always a kid who always wants to do the same 2 or 3 activities. They get into this rut where they want to do flashcards all the time. If that's the way that child learns, then, you know, hands off, no problem. But that's just one activity. If they keep doing the same 2 or 3 activities, choice board after choice board after choice board, then it's time to have a sit down with them and say, hey, you know, branch out a little bit. Try something new the next time. And then also, well, that's a repeat basically of the thing, but they can do it in whatever order they want. So they have 9 choices or 12 choices, and you told them they have to do 3 or 4. How they turn it in is up to them. By the same token, if it's a student who is eager to try new things, but is not very successful, you might want to rein him in a tad and guide him toward an activity which would give him more success. And it does provide the vehicle for self-differentiation, or it should. Okay? Kids know how they learn. If they're visual learners, they know that. If they're auditory learners, they know that. If they're kinesthetic learners, they know that. So they may not have that verbiage, but they know how they learn best. How do you design a choice board? It should revolve around a concept, a goal, or a standard, and that's up to you. Each activity should stimulate learning, so you want them actively engaged in whatever activity they're doing. You need to identify what the concept, goal, or standard is that you are targeting. Okay? If you're targeting interpersonal communication, then every single one of the activities has to have some kind of interpersonal communication. It could be oral, it could be written, but it has to be, they all have to have something to do with that standard. Contains activities with a variety of mediums. So if they're doing an oral presentation, they might, or presentational speaking, let's say, they might want to do a multimedia presentation. They might want to do a blog, an oral blog. They might want to do a PSA. They might want to videotape themselves doing something. That's up to them. They might also just have to design a poster or an infographic or do something else. But give them a choice of of ways to present so that everybody has something they like. They should vary in difficulty and complexity so that you're targeting the high, the middle, and the low, and so no one feels, threatened. And you should also have a variety of activities that can be done either individually, with a partner, or in a group. There's always that one kid who wants to do everything by himself. Doesn't want to work in a group, doesn't want to work with a partner. There are times when it has to be. If it's interpersonal communication, there obviously has to be a partner. But sometimes it takes a while for a student to want to interact with somebody else, especially a new student in class who doesn't have anybody, any friends, doesn't know anybody. They might be a little more reticent in joining the group. But this gives them an opportunity. And there's always the kid who, the gregarious one who says, hey, I want to learn about this. Come on, who wants to learn with me? And he forms his own group. He's the alpha. So a little bit of everything so that everybody's happy. And be sure you provide due dates, clear instructions of what is expected. And if something is being assessed in a slightly different way, then provide rubrics for them so that they have that. And they know exactly what's expected of them, so there are no surprises at the end. I didn't know I had to. Yes, you did. It was in the rubric. These are some example of choice words for languages. Of course, my focus is Spanish because that's what I taught, but these will work for any language, I think. Here's one that is, the focus is vocabulary. So these are things that can be done to increase vocabulary knowledge of a lesson or a unit. A crossword puzzle for the kid who loves to do crossword puzzles. That would be me. I love to do crossword puzzles. I have designed crossword puzzles for my kids, for not my biological kids, my student kids. There used to be a template that you could get through, I can't remember, Discovery or something, and they had it and you put in the words and like magic, the crossword puzzle would appear or a word search would appear. There were several choices. So that, that would be something for me. If I were someone who enjoyed drawing or enjoyed graphic novels or comic strips or comic books, then I would do the second one. Write and illustrate a 6 to 10 panel comic strip using at least 7 current vocabulary words and 3 examples of the current grammar topic. So perfect for that. They might be, the future video game wizard and invent a game board or a video game. Or they might be the entrepreneur. That's not pronounced right, but anyway, and are going to own a store or a fleet of stores, and they want to put out an ad. So there's for the singer or for the musician to come up with a song, or then there's always the flashcards as well. And some kids, if that's the way they learn is by using flashcards, then go for it. Go for it. And there's many ways to do flashcards. You can do the Spanish word on one side and a picture on the other so that there's no English at all. Or the words that you can't illustrate is the word in Spanish and then in English. I told my students they could take flashcards anywhere. They could be standing in line going through flashcards. Did they do it? Probably not. But could they have? Yes. Or they're driving to school in the morning, or not them driving, but being driven to school, and they're going through flashcards. I've seen kids do that walking down the hallway, just going through. Those are your high achievers normally, but some kids really learn using flashcards. My daughter loved flashcards because that was something she could just pick up and go through quickly. Again, for the child who likes to draw, you could do a rebus. The possibilities are endless. Use your imagination. Use the imagination of your students. Ask them what they like to do. As you get to know them, you get to know what they like. And make sure you include something that will touch on most of your students, every single choice board. This one is strictly vocabulary practice. You can see it says vocabulary practice there. And this is just 12 different ways that they can use vocabulary. And I would tell them to use 3 or 4 of the blocks. My classes almost always illustrated the vocabulary anyway and made a bingo card and pictures and no words on your vocabulary, on the bingo card. No words. No Spanish word, no English word. I gave them the word in Spanish and they had to find a picture that went with it. And since every kid draws differently or cuts and pastes differently, there were no 2 cards that were the same. So that was kind of cool. Password is an old-timey game that was on TV a long time ago, where there were partners and one person knew the word and was describing it to another, and that person had to guess the word, and you gave clues one at a time, one word clues at a time, until that person could guess it, until, you know, time ran out. For example, if puerta was the word, I would say habitación, abrir, entrar, and hopefully somebody would say puerta. You could play the pyramid game. It used to be the $25,000 pyramid. Now it's probably a $50,000 pyramid, if it's still around. You could also do Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I mean, there's just endless amounts of things you can do. And for vocabulary or for, you know, almost any topic. Use your imagination. Let it run wild. Okay, now we're going to transition. Those were concept or concept oriented. Now we're going to go into the formative and summative assessment mode. So I've gone through, and these are the 9 big headings for standards. So there are a couple things you have to remember. You have to provide more than one activity for each standard because you want them to have choice, of course. You also want to be able to make it different. So that, I mean, different sort of, because presentational speaking is presentational speaking and they have to talk, and that's the way it is. But it could be, well, you'll see. I'm not even going to get ahead of myself. And they have, in order for it to be effective, and that's kind of a funky word, they have to do one activity in each column, because we're assessed as teachers on teaching to the standards. So we have to assess the students in terms of standards. So they have to meet all 9 broad standards. How you achieve them is up to you. But in order to assess them, whether it be formative or summative, you know, they have to do this. Now, I would give it as a formative assessment at the end of the first quarter and at the end of the third quarter. And it would be summative at the semester, midterm, and final. The format is the same. Hello. But the summative assessment would include material from whatever chapters had been covered, or lessons or units, however your book is divided. A little más fuego. Okay, so these are, I'm going to give you 3 examples for levels 1, 2, and 3. And I want you to check out my Pinterest board, because I do have more stuff there than what's here. This I just, you know, did now. Level 1 choice board. This is very basic for the beginning of the year type thing. They don't know a lot. They don't have a wealth of vocabulary or a wide range of vocabulary. This is tailored to a very specific kind of lesson, like getting to know your friends or your friends and me, or you know, things like that. Anyway, we're going to look at the first row, and then I'll point out a couple things in the second and third row. For presentational speaking, they're going to introduce their partner using the information they gathered in the interview. Where do they get their interview? In the interpersonal communication, because it says interview your partner about what he or she likes and doesn't like to do. Interpersonal communication, they're going to ask each other questions, and then they're going to present that information orally. Write 5 sentences telling about what you like to do and not do. So then it becomes personal. Interpersonal communication, we've already talked about. Interpretive reading, read an article about students in a Spanish-speaking country, or whatever the target language is, and then answer some questions. You would have to find that article, because at this level, I wouldn't trust them to find an article. And trust, I don't mean that I think they're going to cheat. It's just that they don't know what they're looking for. And then just give them a couple questions. And then for interpretive listening, oh gosh. Interpretive listening, listen to a conversation between two students your age, answer the questions. Oops, I left out quest. Do that. Again, you might have students in levels 2 or 3 who have really good pronunciation, or you might have some heritage speakers or even some native speakers in your language, in your classes, and have them record it at a speed which level 1 can understand. You don't want to go brrr. If they don't like that one, well, they can listen to an audio clip about something else. So, research what students your age like to do in Spain or another Spanish-speaking country when they are not in school. Comparisons, compare what activities your partner likes to do with those of a student in Spain or another Spanish-speaking country. Connections, using a Venn diagram, compare and contrast the activities your partner likes to do with a student in Spain or another Spanish-speaking country, or whatever country it happens to be. Prepare a survey in which your classmates choose what activities they like to do and which they don't like to do. So you're going to prepare the survey questions. You might say the student might say, ¿Qué 3 cosas te gustan hacer? And every student lists 3 things. ¿Qué cosas, or just one? ¿Qué te gusta hacer? ¿Qué no te gusta hacer? And then you have 2, gusta and no gusta. And you're going to use that information then in your presentation or somewhere else in the activities. There are a couple of other things like prepare a poster comparing and contrasting different vocabulary used to describe someone's personality. Poster with pictures, like emojis. Or prepare an infograph with the activity students in a Spanish-speaking country and your classmates like and dislike. So there's a little bit of something for everybody. There's a variety of activities and a variety of presentation modes. For Spanish 3, they know a lot more, so you expect a lot more out of them. Let's look at, did I skip level 2? Oops. I think I did, because that's the food one. Yes, level 2 is all different things that have to do with food. Recipe, camping, which you take food on, and a cookout. So those 3 things, whatever floats their boat, For the first one, using Old World and New World foods, I do have a reading, I think it's in English, or maybe it's English and Spanish, about foods that came from the Old World to the New World and foods that went from the New World to the Old World with the explorers. And it's kind of a fun activity for them to realize where foods that they eat every day came from. So I'm not going to give any more away than that. So that would be the first one. They have to find a recipe that uses both New World and Old World ingredients. The second one is about camping in a Spanish-speaking country or whatever language it is. How do people camp in Argentina? What's different about camping in Argentina than the U.S.? And the third one is cookouts. What is traditional? A traditional cookout in the United States maybe is hamburgers and hot dogs, maybe steaks, chicken. But that may not be what is traditional in, say, Puerto Rico, where they have pernil. Yum. Oh my gosh. So you want to give them a variety of things, a variety of ideas, a variety of ways to use the language. That's the bottom line. For level 3, they know more and they can do more. So this is all about the environment and endangered species. And what they have to do, let's talk about the community, because there's that piece of community outreach. Community is more than, it's not outside the school necessarily. It can be your classroom is a community of learners. If you add other Spanish classes or other German classes or French classes or whatever, Latin, whatever it is, then that's your community. That's a bigger community, but that's a community. Then you can go outside the school building and you have your community where you live and play and whatever. So for their community outreach, for the first one, which is about an environmental issue, they're going to prepare a PSA, but they're going to prepare it, about an environmental issue in your community. Post it on a website or Facebook page and encourage others to participate and come up with solutions. So it's going to be interpersonal as well, but that's the product for community. If you wanted to talk about an endangered species, you're going to prepare a blog about what can be done to save an endangered species, however many you want, that child wants to include, or wherever they want to target, whatever country they want to target. Upload it and invite others to join you to help the endangered species. And the third one is very community-based, or no, did I do that again? No. Create a website or Facebook page for your community about an environmental problem that affects your community. Invite others to collaborate and come up with solutions. That may be something that a solution that they come up with may be a solution that they read about when they were researching another country. They may have found a way to solve an environmental problem in their community that they read about. So, you know, they're making connections as well as reaching out to the community. I had a lot of fun putting these together, and I had a lot of fun working with them when I was still teaching, because it's different and it's engaging, and the kids never knew what I was going to come up with next. So, you know, how you design your boards is entirely up to you. But I want you to use them, give them a shot. I know it's hard this year because, you know, the way things are. Many of you are doing hybrid classes, and my hat is off to all teachers this year. All teachers this year. What a rough year. I say every day, I'm glad I retired when I did. But, you know, and this year is not probably the year to introduce something new. If you've never done choice boards before, you might try a small one and you know, get your feet wet, and then develop from there. Rome was not built in a day. So don't think you have to go from 9 squares to 27 in one fell swoop, because you don't have to. If you're a proponent of project-based learning, you've already got it, and you just have to fit it into a choice board. And then the kids don't know. They don't realize that they're doing the same thing. So at any rate, I'm glad I was able to spend time with you today. This is my information for you to reach out. Please do. Send me an email. Tell me you want to receive the newsletter. Tell me that you enjoyed the session, you didn't enjoy the session. Make suggestions, give me resources, whatever. And I will form a Google group of choice board attendees, and we'll share ideas back and forth. So please do that. Check out the Pinterest board, check out my website, and keep on reinventing and reimagining together. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the conference. Adios.